people saying we're coming to Coutts. We're coming to the Milk River. We're coming to support. We're bringing in. What do you need? What do they need? We're coming. Thousands upon thousands of people are coming. They don't have enough RCMP officers to deal with that. They don't have enough army to deal with that. Remember, you have the power now.
What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you, you nuts? What? What's wrong with you? What back off? This is a clergyman!
Get out of the way.
What's wrong with you?
You guys are the
This
ones
is a
playing
clergyman!
Selene Galas here with Rebel News, here in Ottawa for the Public Order Emergency Commission, a public inquiry investigating whether or not it was justified and necessary for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to invoke the Emergencies Act, which was previously known as the War Measures Act. The Liberal cabinet essentially declared martial law back in February on the Freedom Convoy protesters who were protesting federal COVID-19 mandates across the country. While the convoy of trucks that traveled from BC to Ottawa were settling in, a grassroots rebellion was taking place in Coutts, Alberta, where protesters had blocked the border on and off for over 14 days. You can learn more about this at truckerdocumentary.com. Our focus today is on Pastor Artur Pawlowski, a preacher from Calgary who visited the blockade to provide a sermon.
Again, not talking about violence. I'm not talking about swords and guns and all that stuff. You've got the most powerful wings ever.
He was subsequently arrested under the Critical Infrastructure Act and spent 51 days in jail after being denied bail. He was the only person ever charged under the anti-eco-terrorism law. This isn't the first run-in with the law that he's had. Artur has been arrested 4 times during the COVID-19 crackdown. 4 pastors total were arrested over the last 2 years of the pandemic for not adhering to restrictions. You can actually still help him out in court as we crowdfund his legal defense through the Democracy Fund, a registered charity, at saveartur.com. Let's go back to what we're here for. During the inquiry, Marlon DeGrand, Assistant Deputy Minister of the Public Safety and Emergency Services of Alberta, was questioned on Artur Pawlowski's involvement during the blockade. So let's take a look at that.
Here we see an indication from him on February 4th that Artur Pawlowski had showed up and fired everyone up at the Coutts protest site to convince them to stay. You aware of that?
Yeah, I actually am aware of that event, yes.
But I'm telling you, there is this huge opportunity right now that we have been given. God has given us this moment in history. Why? Because international media are watching you right now. That's power.
Yes.
During 1980, there was...
Thank you. Have you seen that that speech before by Artur Pawlowski?
No, I haven't actually. Thank you.
Do you hear that he is singling out Premier Kenney as the source of the problem, and I believe he referred to Kenney's mafia?
Yeah, that's what I heard, yes.
And he said, "This is our Alamo," referring, I take it, to the standoff at the Alamo in Texas.
That's, I assume, the reference.
But why? Artur Pawlowski was charged because it was believed that he incited the crowd to possible violence. It was believed that he had involvement in the blockade. And yet, just a day before, during the testimony of Marco van Hugenbos, a participant and alleged organizer of the Coutts Blockade, it was reiterated that Pastor Artur Pawlowski had no prior involvement whatsoever. Take a look here.
By that, those individuals that had come in to leave for Edmonton, Coffee with Kenny, that happened just before Pastor Artur Pawlowski came in, and he might have actually been in the audience while I was explaining the motive, et cetera, but the unanimous agreement was to stay. And this has never been, Pastor Artur has charges in regards to this, but his charge is that he incited us to stay because Coffee with Kenny was seen as us leaving. Before Pastor Artur reached the podium or even reached the building, I'm not sure of the events, the protesters had decided we were staying. The decision to stay had nothing to do with Pastor Artur.
Furthermore, the next testimony was Coutts Mayor Jim Willett, who mentioned in a revealed text message with Alberta Minister Rajan Sawhney, quote, Artur Pawlowski had shown up and fired everyone up to convince them to stay, unquote. Regardless of who or what actually made the truckers stay, what does a COVID-defiant pastor have to do with the Emergency Measures Act?
Who can move 10,000 truckers? We can. With 100,000 supporters. I am calling right now every Albertan not to go to Edmonton, but to come here. Thank you. Come here.
The testimony of Marlon DeGrant followed up with another thing that has nothing to do with the Emergencies Act, explaining that Adam So's, a Rebel reporter, had hitched a ride in a helicopter heading down to deliver food for the truckers. Let's take a look here.
Mr. Sawhney's still on the next day, February the 6th. She's asking, was food dropped off to the protesters by helicopter, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and that's the character of the rumor that was going on about Paul Brandt, that he dropped off food by helicopter, right?
Well, I don't see his name on this text, but certainly that was one of the rumors. Whether there was other rumors that the minister was hearing about other helicopter drops, there were, and I'm not even sure. I think by this point the NOTAM or the Notice to Airmen restricting airspace might have been in place as well. So that might have been. I don't want to put myself in the mind of the minister as to what she was inquiring about.
Sure. According to Mayor Willett, at least, he says Rebel rented a chopper and made a video,
Yeah.
which is what circulated. Is that according with your recollection of what happened there?
See, I'm not familiar with any information around Rebel News renting a chopper, but certainly that's the post from the mayor.
It's important to note that a helicopter was planned because the RCMP were blocking off the roads, and it points to where they were starving off peaceful protesters. Let's watch a clip of Rebel News reporter Adam So's heading down to Coutts.
Incredible scene here. We are just making our way into Coutts, and there is an RCMP set up barricade preventing people attempting to join the protest, attempting to join the blockade, and they are currently holding up the highway. An incredible sight to be seen.
Today was yet another day where we failed to see any compelling evidence to suggest that the Emergencies Act was in fact justified. Spoiler alert, the Coutts Blockade was resolved before the Emergencies Act was even invoked. If you missed that, it means that you haven't been watching our coverage at truckercommission.com. So head over there right now, where you can also donate to fund our on-the-ground journalism here in Ottawa. For Rebel News, this has been Selene Galas. If you're enjoying the coverage that we're providing here down in Ottawa for the Emergency Commissions Act, then you can go to truckercommission.com, where you can watch any of our previous days that we've covered here as well. We have William Diaz here in Ottawa, as well as Keen Simone and other rebels on the ground, always here to bring you the latest updates on the inquiry going on.